Harmattan is a dry, dusty wind from the Sahara Desert, and it sweeps across West Africa from late November to March. It's that time of the year when the air is dry, visibility is low, and temperature fluctuates between chilly mornings and hot afternoons. While many of us associate Harmattan with the dusty haze and cold winds, it can also take a toll on our health. Hello and welcome to Healthy Living on Trust TV. I am Aisha, Salihu, and today we will be tackling a very timely topic, Harmattan. As we move into the end of the year, the Harmattan season is upon us, and it brings with it a host of health concerns. From dry skin to respiratory issues, Harmattan has its impact, especially in certain parts of Nigeria. And now to help us understand how to stay healthy this Harmattan season, we have an expert, Dr. Garba Umar Kangiwa, who is a consultant at the Federal Teaching Hospital, Birnin, Kebbi. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
And now, while Harmattan affects most parts of Nigeria, the northern regions experience its impact more intensely. States such as Kano, Katsina, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, Jigawa, and even Maiduguri often face severe dust haze, leading to reduced visibility and colder temperatures and respiratory issues. But before we get talking with Dr. Garba, the people of Kebbi are talking about how the Harmattan is taking a toll on them. Take a look.
In recent days, Kebbi State has witnessed a dramatic transition: foggy mornings, dusty winds, scorchy sunny days, and chilly nights. The extreme weather conditions have disrupted daily life, leaving residents to grapple with its effects. The Harmattan, which typically spans from November to February, is marked by dry and dusty winds originating from the Sahara Desert. While this season is not new to the region, the intensity this year has taken many by surprise. Experts are raising concerns about the broader implications of this climate shift, particularly its effects on agriculture, livestock productions, and public health.
Now, the intensification of the Harmattan season entails that we have less water moisture in the atmosphere. The implication of that is that we might experience a late initiation or late onset of the rain. And if that happens, it means that the length of the growing season will be shortened, likely affecting the crops and by extension, the farmer that depends on it.
Residents have also shared their struggles, detailing the economic and health-related challenges brought on by this harsh weather.
It is the lack of money. People don't have money in their possession. But with the cold situation, person has to look for alternative to just cover himself and his children. So they are trying all their best to at least buy the cheapest one so that they will cover themselves and their children.
During this season, well, as we all know, we all face different challenges. Like in the morning when I wake up, I would normally have stuffy nose, and it's because of the weather, stuffy nose. And I find it very difficult to wake up in the morning because of the cold.
As Kebbi State continues to endure the Harmattan's grip, residents are bracing for the days ahead, with climate change intensifying year by year. The ability of communities to adapt to these shifting weather patterns remains uncertain. From Birnin, Kebbi, Cynthia Yungu, Trust TV.
Dr. Garba, there you've heard it from the people of Kebbi State. But now let me start off with, usually Harmattan starts in late November and lasts until March. I'd like to hear from you. Can you walk us through some of the common health problems Nigerians face during this time?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, as you heard, the Harmattan actually affect different organ system of human body, more especially in those living in the northwestern part of the country and some part of the northeastern part of the country. Now, some of these systems include respiratory tract system and then skin. These are very vulnerable to Harmattan effect and the havoc that Harmattan is causing on the respiratory tract infection. Common cold, for example, and common infections are very common among our patients now. When you visit our emergency units, in different emergencies, in different units of the hospital, you can see that common cold is now very common. You can see that because the weather is very cold, and then the breeze is actually is actually smoky, and sometimes it can be dusty, such that it dries up the nostrils, such a way that breathing will now become a little bit painful when an individual is doing it. Those hairy cells along the nostrils are going to become dry, and then their ability to move and then their motility will now be reduced. And once that is reduced, that will predispose an individual to now begin to develop something like cough. So an individual now graduates from the common cold now to develop other form of respiratory infection, including cough, for example. And then to some children, and this cough can now extend to the lower respiratory tract, and then predisposing them to things like pneumonia, which can be very dangerous and sometimes can be lethal to younger children. And even among adults, pneumonia is a major problem actually affecting the lungs. So this is one of the common problems that Harmattan is causing in this part of the country. Now, second thing is the skin. Now, when you look at the skin, is one organ, is the widest organ in the human body that is exposed to all the harsh situations of the cold weather of Harmattan. It becomes dry, easily dry, and then once it's dry, the moisture that are actually released by some of these hairy glands, sebum or whatever, they will easily become dry. And once it becomes dry, it becomes very itchy, and then a little bit very discomforting to individuals. So therefore, skin is one of those organs that are predisposed to so many diseases, such as rashes and itchy and other things that will now predispose as a result of cold weather. Okay. Then thirdly, we have other patients or other individuals that are actually heated the most. That is the sickle cell patient. Now, these are people that inherit an abnormality in their blood, which we call sickle cell disease. So this sickle cell disease generally is affected by the cold weather. Exposure to all the extreme temperatures, more especially the cold, is one of the predisposing factors to development of what we call sickle cell crisis. Okay. And this sickle cell crisis actually it comes in different ways and in different forms. Now, when you look at the crisis that comes with pain, is excruciating pain. Now, this crisis is what we call vaso-occlusive crisis. Now, it's all caused by Harmattan, exposure to Harmattan. That is what is causing this vaso-occlusive crisis. So you see an individual with sickle cell disease will now present to emergency unit or to hospital with excruciating pain. You see parents complaining, and then in the serious distress because of the situation their children or their loved ones actually find themselves as a result of exposure to Harmattan. So secondly, they also have what we call anemic crisis, where they present with shortage of blood as a result of increased destruction of their red blood cells. So this patient, once they are exposed to Harmattan, they now become vulnerable to develop what we call sickling, sickle cell sickling. Once sickling occurs, these red blood cells will now become easily destroyed in the form of what we call hemolysis. And once this hemolysis occurs, you now begin to see an individual, his eyes will change color to greenish appearance. You see it will now become to change color to different color, and the urine will now change color to coke-colored or dark or coke-colored urine. Now, individual begin to pass that, and that is an indication that such patient is actually hemolyzing or destroying his blood as a result of exposure to Harmattan. So Harmattan can cause serious havoc to patients with sickle cell disease. So many of these patients with sickle cell disease that are borderline with other medical conditions or other medical or surgical conditions, such as avascular necrosis of the head of the femur. You see them developing inability to walk because their hip joint will now develop what we call avascular necrosis of the head of the femur. Some of them actually develop problem in the brain, which we call stroke. actually in patients with sickle cell disease. So this Harmattan can cause serious havoc among many patients. So sickle cell is just one of them that will cause. And those individuals, again, with borderline diseases such as bleeding disorders, such as von Willebrand disease, for example, that can easily bleed, or some patient that has a tendency to bleed are following actually exposure to Harmattan. Their nostrils will now become dry. Once it becomes dry, there is the blood vessels inside their nostrils are now can now easily break. And once those blood vessels in the little area inside the nostrils actually break, then you see an individual now begin to bleed. So therefore, bleeding can now manifest in patients that are borderline with bleeding disorders. So another havoc that this exposure to Harmattan will cause is actually bleeding. So therefore, there is that need for parents to take care of their children and take care of themselves and their children. Number one, wear good clothes to make sure that you prevent the children from exposure to this breeze. And then wear face masks.
Dr. Garba, can you hear me?
Wear face masks so that you can prevent the effect on the nostrils and other respiratory tract infections, as the case may be. Then wear thick cloths to prevent skin from being exposed. Skin is the largest organ in the human body, and it can easily be exposed. You can see it's exposed in different aspects. It can be along the earlobes, it can be along the fingers, along the hands, or in the legs, as the case may be. So if it is possible, we should wear long cloth to see that we cover at least most part of the skin that is exposed outside, so that we can prevent the deleterious effect of this Harmattan on the skin. So you talking about other disease conditions, again, that can actually be can cause problem in patient with the during Harmattan. So you talk about so you now talk about other disease conditions that are also likely to cause problems. Air problems, for examples, that easily, once they are exposed, they can now the breeze can easily affect the eardrums, the air canals generally. So they cover the airs properly so that there won't be much breezes that will now be exposing an individual to now to the deleterious effect of actually Harmattan. So generally speaking, Harmattan cause deleterious effect on the skin, on the respiratory tract infections, and then on other inherited disorders such as sickle cell disease, such as bleeding disorders generally. So all this should be taken into consideration so that these people can be properly protected and prevented from the effect of Harmattan during this season.
Okay,
this part of the country, we witness from November actually up to March, sometimes in March, we now face a serious effect of Harmattan, and the intensity of this Harmattan keep on increasing by the day. More especially when the weather begin to change, it becomes cloudy and dusty. Sometimes breathing will become difficult. So other individuals, again, with bronchial asthma, for example, those again are going to be prone to attack by during this Harmattan. Exposure to Harmattan can actually predispose them to have acute asthmatic attack. So all this actually can be prevented through these measures that we have mentioned, is to cover your clothes, cover yourself very well, cover your children very well. Make sure that when they are going to school, you put on proper dressing for them to be well covered. And then if possible, they should go with their face masks, and if possible, they should cover most of their skin from the outside from exposure to this. And for the nostrils, for those that have bronchial asthma, they can easily get bronchial acute asthmatic attack. So that is another problem actually that can affect patient with so all the individuals that knew that they have bronchial asthma, for example, or any form of bronchospasm for whatever reason, they should try to wear face masks so that they can cover themselves and prevent themselves from deleterious effect of Harmattan. So generally speaking, Harmattan can actually cause wide range of diseases during this period.
Okay, Dr. Garba, you have stated quite a number of health concerns that may present during this Harmattan season. You have also stated how vulnerable population, I mean people with sickle cell disease, people who are asthmatic, how they are also at major risk, and even children under the age of 0 to but within the age of 0 to 5. But now, Doctor, I'd like to hear from you. You have stated quite a lot of, management techniques and how we should go about coping with, during the Harmattan season that we're currently experiencing in the country. But then I'd like to hear from you very quickly. Would you say there are any specific dietary recommendations to help the body cope with the effects of Harmattan? I mean, we saw in the reports people in Kebbi are complaining, there's the economic impact right now in the country, and also for health matters, a lot of people are saying they are not able to wake up early, some of their functions in the body are not even working the way it ought to be. So I'd like to hear from you. Are there any dietary recommendations?
Well, not precisely as far as dietary is concerned, but we recommend that individuals maintain their normal good diet, that is balanced diet, that contain all the nutrient, multivitamin, proteins, vitamins, and fats at least. Once you have that carbohydrate, you covered all the major needs in the food substances, carbohydrate, fat, and protein, as well as multivitamins, you are covered. But specifically during Harmattan, specific dietary measures, there is no need for that. Just cover your normal nutrients to make sure that normal dietary. But most importantly is the protective effect that we should pay attention to during Harmattan, because most of the effect caused by Harmattan can actually be prevented. So if we can put in place all the protective measures, we can actually protect ourselves from the deleterious effect of this Harmattan. So skin should be properly covered, the nostrils should be properly covered and then prevented for all the respiratory tract infection. Children or those with inherited disorders should take proper measures. They know all the extreme of temperatures, more especially during the Harmattan, can cause the crisis, as we had mentioned earlier. Those with actually issue of bronchial asthma or bronchospasm, as the case may be, change of weather condition like during Harmattan we have, and the dusty environment and the dusty breezes actually can cause acute asthmatic attack or bronchial or bronchospasm, as the case may be. Those are the measures that we specifically want people to take measures. We know during the economic hardship, one of the major effects is actually in the treatment aspect. You will have, if you visit most of our emergencies, now we have patients, for example, the sickle cell, in serious crisis, buying in this economic hardship, buying drugs to take care of their loved ones is becoming a problem, because most of these drugs are now becoming more expensive than they can afford to do. And then you are talking about different aspects of the management. You admit patient, you now give painkillers, you now rehydrate the patient, you now do a lot of measures to see that, and that is consuming a lot of resources. So economically, this season is actually consuming a lot of resources in those that actually develop complications of this Harmattan season. Okay. You are talking about somebody with with pneumonia, for example. You look at the antibiotics. How much is the cost of ordinary antibiotics now? It's very expensive. When you look at this, the IV fluid, how much is it? It's also very expensive. So most of the things that we need to abate the effect of this pneumonia or other respiratory tract infections are now very expensive. Most of the analgesic drugs, the painkillers that we give to patients with crisis, are now very expensive. When you are talking about those with bleeding disorders that are prone to bleeding and other things, getting blood again is not an easy thing. And when you look at the cost of service fee, is also very high. So these are some of the things that people should pay attention to protect, because in this economic hardship, the effect of Harmattan actually is adding more burden to the normal individuals that are struggling for their daily routine life. So when you look at the 3 square meals, the basic 3 square meals that is necessary for the upkeep of the human life, for example. So you can now see that in this economic condition, it's not in every family that they will be able to afford actually these 3 square meals we are talking about. So the 3 square meals, are they properly balanced diets, or they are just eating whatever is available to them? So the point is, we should pay attention to eating a balanced diet, because a balanced diet is the one that will be able to contain all the necessary nutrients and protective things in our body that will be able to fight against the infections that are likely to come during Harmattan season, more especially affecting the respiratory tract.
Dr. Garba, you have stated quite a lot of details right there, but then I'd like to hear from you. I mean, we all know that during this season, there's a lot of dehydration. I'd like to hear from you. How does the dry air during Harmattan contribute to dehydration, and what are the signs to watch, to look out for?
Number one, the dry air, first of all, how it affects the respiratory tract generally is that, in the respiratory tract, when you look at your nostrils, when you look at it, you can see some hair inside the nose. You can see, and in every individual has hair inside his nose. Not that hair, the major fundamental importance of that hair is to be able to control anything that is going inside. So, and the hair can actually move. It has somewhat we call ciliary activity. It can move inside and backward, so that if there is anything that is going inside the nostril, it will protect it and then propel it outside and then throw it away. So this ciliary activity, once the air become dry, the nostril become dry, the hair become dry, the ability of the hair to actually move and then expel things out will now be low. So that these things, when they come, they can easily penetrate and pass down to the respiratory tract inside. So this hot air, this is one of the major effects along the respiratory tract. That's number one. Number two, you can see that you are as soon as bacteria drop in the mucosa of the nostrils, instead of the secretions that are supposed to trap it and then expel it out through this ciliary activity, the mucosa is dry. The cilia, number one, is dry. Number two, the cilia, number one, is dry. The cilia is dry. The number two, the mucosa is dry. Therefore, the bacteria will now be able to exert its effect and then enter into the body stream and then cause bacteremia and other diseases that can affect this. That's number two, the effect of the dry air. Then thirdly, the dry air again will dry the skin. So the skin, if you look at your skin normally, the normal moisture of the skin, you can see that the skin is supposed to be shiny and then contains some oily in it. This oily, the dry air will dry the oil out, so that individual will begin to feel a burning sensation in the body. So you can see that the effect of the dry air is enormous. The dry air will dry the skin. Once the skin is dry, it means that the bloodstream is also going to be dry. So once blood is becoming dehydrated, so it becomes thick for individual with inherited disorders like sickle cell disease, then that's what we call the viscosity of the blood will now increase. And once the viscosity of the blood increases, the frequency of the ability of blood to move actually along the bloodstream will now be reduced. Once that occurs, it simply means that an individual will now begin to develop sickling. And once sickling occurs, all the other complications that we have mentioned earlier, we are talking about vaso-occlusive crisis, we are talking about anemic crisis, we are talking about avascular necrosis of the head of human, we are talking about affectation in the brain, as the case may be, all as a result of what? Dryness of the skin. So once there is dehydration will cause dryness, and then dryness will cause viscosity. Increase in viscosity will cause decrease in blood flow. And then sickling process will now begins to exert its effect. And once there is sickling process going on, and you have problems with occlusions of the microvasculature of the body, and then all the complications of sickle cell will now occur. And you have a dryness again. Dryness, there is in the nostrils, there are blood vessels are very superficial. The blood vessels are very superficial. When the skin is dry, Now it now predispose an individual to have cracks in the nostrils, and once there is a crack, an individual will now begin to bleed in form of what we call epistaxis. So you can now see that dry skin as a result of dry air that you have during Harmattan can cause a lot of havoc in human body. Virtually, it has multi-systemic effect. Every system in human body you pick, you can see some of the effect of this dry air and then the havoc it causes during Harmattan season.
Well, those are quite a number of, essential health tips for the Harmattan season, just as it was doled out to us by our consultant doctor, who is Dr. Garba Umar Kangiwa from the Federal Teaching Hospital, Birnin, Kebbi. Thank you so much for your insights and contributions on the program at this moment.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes this week's episode of the program, Healthy Living on Trust TV. Remember to stay hydrated, stay safe, and stay moisturized. For comments, contributions, and suggestions, do well to follow and subscribe to all Trust TV social media handles. Download the Trust TV app on iOS and Android devices across their respective stores and get live updates on the YouTube live stream and the website. I am Aisha Salihu. Thank you so much for your time. We will be leaving you with some tips on surviving the Harmattan season.